And now, it's Boomer Life. Lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
Yeah, in the daytime I'm Mr. Natural, just as healthy as I can be. But at night I'm a junk food junkie. Good Lord, have pity on me.
Oh, well, welcome to the program. Hello, and welcome to Boomer Life with that little junk food junkie thing kind of starting off and setting up a tone for the program. It's Sterling Fox with you here on CIL 650. And on this program, we're going to focus on your health with the very capable assistance of the medical director of YesWellness.com. Dr. Paul Zickler is back with us on Boomer Life. Good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you too, sir.
And the junk food junkie, we're going to spend a lot of time on sugar on the program today, and there's no shortage of things to talk about. We'll also review some of the tips and practices or best practices that you talked about on your last appearance with us, because of course we're right smack in the middle of cold and flu season. All those TV ads, everybody's got to get a flu shot. So we talked about it last program. We'll revisit a few of your thoughts on that matter. But before we get started, let's just remind everybody who they're listening to here, Dr. Paul, because you've been a physician for over 40 years and spent over 20 of those as an emergency room physician at Royal Columbian in New Westminster, pioneering a lot of techniques that you weren't taught. You had to figure it out for yourself, but the stuff that you learned and adapted and made into practice is now actually part of the curriculum in medical schools.
Yeah, well, probably most of the stuff that we engineered at that time probably is antiquated now, but certainly the whole concept of emergency medicine,
right,
we got going for sure. Yeah, it's very interesting to see where the specialty has grown to such a great part, and it's an essential part of our medical system.
Right, and after leaving, after a brilliant career, 20 plus years, 22 years, was it at Royal Columbian?
Yep.
Then you moved on and with a group of colleagues set up a series of walk-in type clinics, wellness centers in the South Surrey Langley area near the border.
Yep.
And started seeing not only locals, but people who were coming up across the border from the United States because it was convenient and close. And as they were very quick to discover, once prescribed a prescription, once they received a prescription and had it filled in Canada, they were just astonished, your American patients, to find out this vast difference in pricing between Canadian and American drugs of exactly the same type. We charge less than half of what they do, don't we?
That's right, exactly, and that's what exactly happened, and that started me on another turn in my career.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we started an online pharmacy business, and that's what really created my interest. One of the aspects in terms of being online,
right,
and learning the sort of the business of an online industry at the very beginning of online commerce, is why we started YesWellness.com. No. And my interest in natural medicine came from the fact that my daughter became a naturopath, and while she was doing her training, my natural curiosity in terms of what she's learning and what she's doing sort of got me interested, and I went to many courses down at Bastyr University where she was going in Seattle, and started getting a real active interest in alternative medicine.
I could understand why your curiosity would get piqued by that, because here's your daughter following in Dad's footsteps, becoming a doctor, except, well, a different kind of doctor. So there you are going, well, gosh, what's she learning that I didn't?
Exactly, and it was really good. And then that sort of marriage between the e-commerce and the alternative medicine has sort of led to the inception of YesWellness.com.
And what predominantly is YesWellness.com about, Dr. Zickler?
Well, YesWellness.com is basically an education center where we are trying to promote health and empower individuals to take care of their health. And so we're providing a lot of education,
right,
as well as a very reliable qualified source of nutrients and supplements that may be requested or may be needed by the individual really looking after their health.
Right, okay.
And so we sort of tailor that sort of education component as well as the commerce component, so that all the sort of the nutraceuticals and supplements and products that pertain to health, we know, or the patient knows, that it's coming from a very well sourced, and also it is important for their health.
We Canadians are rabid consumers of the internet. We're world-class users of the internet, and particularly when it comes to our health, Dr. Paul, we're any physician anywhere in Canada will tell you that a lot of their patients now arrive at their office with at least a suspicion of what exactly is wrong with them, because they've looked it up. They've done some homework. So you're able at YesWellness.com to track viewerships and visitors and that sort of thing. So I'm curious what your take is on our use of online medical information these days.
Well, your point is well taken. Canadians are well sort of suited to get on the internet, because a lot of them do have devices, and most of the Canadians are connected, and they're comfortable with buying things online.
Sure.
What we really want to do is make people educated so they can make informed decisions on what to take or not to take. So a lot of, when you go, as we all know, there's a lot of sites where there is a large education component, but the direction is to buy these products.
Right.
Our bent is, listen, if you've made an informed decision that we've helped you with in terms of giving you reliable sources, and you feel that you've made a decision that you need some nutraceuticals and supplements in your life,
right,
then here we are. We've got some products for you that are good ones.
But it's not about a setup to lead everyone to purchasing whatever the house brand necessarily is.
It's the empowerment.
Exactly. And you're a big believer in that. And without a syllable of disrespect to the medical community at all, you are the kind of guy, after being a physician for 40 years, who really wishes more of us healthcare consumers would ask the simple question, why? When we have something recommended to us by a healthcare practitioner, perhaps a prescription, perhaps a lifestyle change, dietary supplements, whatever it may be, you're suggesting that, or maybe just say, well, have you got your flu shot yet? Well, why do I need a flu shot, doctor?
Yes, and you hit the nail right on the head, Stu, and again, it goes right back to empowering that individual so that you're making decisions with information that you've decided on, and then you've decided on the plan of action for you.
Right.
The only thing that's missing is that motivation, and that motivation to, ask the question, get the information, but then act on it.
Right.
And that's where I think when people feel empowered, that they're in control of their wellness, that they actually can affect the outcome, then they're probably more likely to get on the right path to making those things happen. If you're sort of sit back and go to your doctor and go and check your blood pressure and it's high, he gives you a pill and you go home and you take it and go back after 3 months and it's not so good, then he gives you another pill and
right.
You go home and you take it, you're never going to get better. And that trigger, that switch, that key to turn him on to making him responsible for his health never happens.
Right.
But if you start asking questions and then looking at information from various sources, it really shows that you got an interest. Once you have an interest, then I'd say I'm taking an active part in making my health a priority.
This is Boomer Life. You and I are both boomers, Doc. Are we, as a generation, baby boomers, a little better? Are we coming around a little faster in terms of that proactivity that you're talking about recognizing that the only way I'm going to enjoy a quality of life for the rest of my earthly days is if I take control of it and my eating habits and my lifestyle choices? Are baby boomers in 2015 any better than our parents were, say, 40 years ago?
Well, that's a complex question actually, because our parents 40, 50 years ago, they were still using natural food, eating food well. They were still a lot more active because they're doing more active work. They didn't have the stress that's after the war. So after the war, there wasn't as much stress in terms of being connected to a device 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Right.
So the actual life was a lot simpler in terms of being healthy.
Okay.
So they may not have had all the consumer goods, but they were happier, healthier, and less stressed.
Interesting, because we would flatter ourselves these days into believing, oh no, we're way ahead of that curve. We know so much more. We're just that much smarter.
Yeah.
As it turns out, we have more choices, more things to choose from. So I guess then the question becomes, are we making good choices?
Yeah, and because now our life is much more complicated because we're being bombarded by interests that aren't really empowering us to make decisions on our own. They're directing us in the right direction. So we have big pharma selling us drugs. Every little symptom that's a disease, every symptom becomes a disease that there's a drug for.
Right.
And
you got a problem, we got a pill.
And usually the drug's here and they invent the disease to go along with it. And similarly for big food. So they're just as bad as big pharma. So big food, started making things faster, quicker, using cheaper products, replacing a good, wholesome, saturated fats into carbohydrates.
Right.
And we're going to talk about sugar later on.
Absolutely.
That's where it started 40, 50 years ago. And the process of foods and their control now and what we're imbibing and what we're getting on our plates is so much different than what our parents were. But back to your question, are the boomers today any better than the boomers or
healthier? Maybe healthier.
I don't think they're healthier, but I think you'll see, and you'll in your peer group that there is a real active interest to become healthier.
Yes.
To take care of their health. They're starting
a lot of talk about it, if nothing else.
Right, and I think that they're making some more informed decisions.
Okay, because we're more aware of it.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with being the largest single population group of the last century, the baby boom generation. There's clout in that strength of numbers, and there's also once you sort of sense a movement. The joining the parade sentiment is pretty easy to organize, isn't it? And there's better communication between members of the generation, so information is shared better and faster too, isn't it?
And they still remember some of that stuff 40, 50 years ago that their parents did.
That's right. That's right. Oh, very quickly before we take the break, we started out talking about asking why. And when I asked you about the flu shot last show, you said, well, it's a decision that an individual should make based on his or her concerns. But if the doctor or a professional recommends you get a flu shot, it's not a bad form to say why.
I think that's a really good idea. And I'm not sure if we have a moment or two to talk about that right now, but the benefit of the flu shot is not anywhere near 100%.
Absolutely.
And your protection is only getting 3, or if you get the newer vaccine, it's got 4 viruses that's being protected against. And as we looked at for the last couple of years, several of those viruses, 1 year after another, where the virus becomes mutant. So the actual vaccine becomes less effective. And so the actual effectiveness of last year's flu shot was about 19%.
Yeah, so we hear.
And then if you look at the percentage of flu shots that create side effects, and that risk-benefit ratio is getting less and less.
Right. Now, this year's batch or combination is supposed to be closer to 50% in terms of anticipated effectiveness.
Right. That's what we're predicting to start with.
Right.
But it never ends up 50%. It always ends up closer to 20 to 30%. And what I'm saying is that if you're really healthy and you're eating healthy, exercising, you feel well, and you hardly ever have a cold, I mean, then you really have to look and say, well,
it's not an automatic then. It doesn't have to be.
Exactly.
Interesting stuff. Our guest, the medical director of YesWellness.com. Always a real pleasure to have Dr. Paul Zickler drop in for an episode of Boomer Life, which will continue right after this.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.